there, this is L24 Midnight News, and these are tonight's headlines. As requested by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algeria has established new rules for construction and import of new vehicles, published in the official journal this Thursday. US Vice President Kamala Harris called on emergency gathering of several allies on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Summit on Friday to condemn North Korea's missiles. Iran climate talks that were supposed to end Friday were extended by another day, as negotiators seek to break deadlock over creating a fund for nations hard hit by global warming impacts. And in Qatar, alcohol will not be sold to fans as World Cup's 8 stadiums in Qatar after FIFA changed its policy 2 days before the start of the tournament. Starting from Algeria, the President of the Republic, President of Cuba, Mr. Miguel Diaz-Canel, visited yesterday the Great Mosque of Algiers. Miguel Diaz-Canel made a tour around the mosque where he expressed his great admiration about the religious facility. The Great Mosque of Algiers, the largest in Algeria and in Africa as well, and the third largest mosque in the world, after the Grand Mosque in Mecca and after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, mosque in Al-Madinah. The two executive decrees setting the conditions for new cars dealing and vehicle making activity were published on Thursday in official Gazette number 76, in accordance with its instructions of the Algerian President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune. Marwa Al-Awar on what's follow.
The Algerian executive decrees setting the conditions and procedures for exercising the activity of a new vehicle dealership as well as carrying out the vehicle for making activity, were published on Thursday in the 76th edition of the official Gazette. These two decrees were published in accordance with the instructions of the Algerian President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. He had ordered during the last meeting of the Cabinet to make public Thursday, November 17, 2022, the specifications governing the activities of car manufacturers and dealers. The new Algerian legal draft stipulates in its second article the installation of a group of vehicles. Its fifth article requires vehicle manufacturers to achieve an integration rate that develops 10% at the end of the second year, 20% at the end of the third year, and achieves an integration rate of 30% by the end of the fifth year. Inclusion percentages are determined by a joint ministerial decision between the ministers in charge of industry and finance. If the integration rates stipulated in the fifth article are not achieved, the decree approved a set of procedures, granting producers concerned additional 12-month reprieve, with a 20% reduction from the multi-year supply program, reducing its remaining uninstalled import stock, and if the producer does not achieve the expected integration rate after the expiration of the additional deadline, its supply program will be frozen until the physical integration rate is achieved. Producers must carry out vehicle export operations in accordance with the undertaking contained in the initial application at the end of the fifth year from the approval date. The two decrees aim to establish a real national industry in the field of vehicle manufacturing, with the mobilization of local handling, as well as providing the necessary conditions to encourage the establishment of world-renowned suppliers who are active in the vehicle manufacturing branch. The Algerian executive decrees has granted many privileges, as vehicle manufacturers in the country benefit from a preferential tax system.
A delegation from the General Confederation of Workers of Saqiya Al-Hamra and Wad al-Dhab participates in the activities of the FIFA World Conference of International Trade Union Confederation, which is being held in the Australian city of Melbourne under the slogan for New Social Contract, where a meeting will be organized on the sidelines of the conference dedicated to solidarity with the Sahrawi people. The participation of the Sahrawi Trade Union delegation comes within the framework of searching for ways to link relations of friendship and cooperation with international unions and to advocate for the rights of Sahrawi workers, as well as within the framework of the Sahrawi Trade Union's search for the opportunities and the horizon to broadcast the cause of the Sahrawi people and its justice. To the Middle East, mourners flooded the streets of Gaza on Friday as they carried the bodies of 21 people, including at least 8 children, killed in a fire in an apartment block where residents had planned to celebrate the homecoming of a relative. Firefighters took more than an hour to get control of the massive flames that burst through the top floor of the 4-story residential building in Jbila, one of the 8 refugee camps in the Gaza Strip, where 2.3 million people live in one of the most densely populated areas on Earth. In the same line of thought, Algeria expressed its sincere condolences to Palestine for the victims of the fire that broke out in the residential building in the Jbila camp in the northern Gaza Strip. A foreign ministry statement said that in the painful circumstances, Algeria renews its full solidarity with the state of Palestine to overcome this ordeal and the challenges it poses, especially in the light of the continued occupation of Palestinian territories and the unjust blockade imposed on the Gaza Strip. Turkish police arrested a total of 17 people in connection with the terrorist bombing last week in Istanbul. The state-run news agency Anadolu reported on Friday. Authorities have blamed the deadly attack on the Kurdish militant groups, although the groups have denied involvement. The November 13 attack was the deadliest to hit Turkey in 5 years. It also brought up memories of a series of nationwide bombing from 2015 to 2017. Leaders from the 21st economies that comprise the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation from met in Bangkok, with representatives from business advisory councils from across the Asia-Pacific region on Friday, against a backdrop of major global challenges impacting the global economy. The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation provides an opportunity for its members to draw experience from each other, build consensus, and come up with new agreements that will eventually bring benefits to the people.
Thank you very much to the Chair, Mr. Pietai. The companies and economies in this region will find a United States that brings immense opportunities for growth. A United States that will uphold the rules of the road, and a United States that will help build prosperity for everyone.
France focused itself not just to support Ukraine, and we will follow up, but to work very closely with the different countries like China, India, the whole region, Middle East, Africa, Latin America, to create an increasing consensus in order to say this war is also your problem, because it will create a lot of destabilization. Help us to convey the same message to Russia. Stop the war, respect international order, come back at the table, because all of us have to focus to fix the real challenge of these times.
North Korea launched an intercontinental ballistic missile on Friday, the second missile test by Pyongyang in 2 days, a missile that Japan said it had the potential range to reach the U.S. mainland. Nabil Khazini.
It is the latest in a record series of missile tests in recent weeks. North Korea launches another intercontinental ballistic missile. This was an emergency in Bangkok for leaders at the Asia-Pacific Summit who called for a sideline meeting to immediately discuss the move.
We strongly condemn these actions, and we again call for North Korea to stop further unlawful destabilizing acts. On behalf of the United States, I reaffirm our ironclad commitment to our Indo-Pacific alliances.
In Tokyo, there was no doubt that the ballistic missile reaching an altitude of 6,000 kilometers was so powerful that it can hit the US mainland.
We analyzed the flight trajectory of the ICBM-class missile that was launched this time, and depending on the warhead and weight of the missile, it had a flying capability of over 15,000 kilometers, which means it had enough range to reach United States mainland.
The latest tests by Pyongyang came just hours after North Korea warned of stronger military responses to the United States for enhancing its security presence in the region. Washington, D.C., meanwhile, pledged to ensure its security and the security of its allies, even if this would trigger the United States to ask China for assistance. A senior official from Washington said the U.S. will ask China, North Korea's primary ally, to help rein in Pyongyang after it tested a missile that could hit the United States. China said that it was closely monitoring developments on the Korean peninsula and that maintaining peace and stability in the region was in the interest of the international community.
We hope
that all parties concerned will stick to the direction of political settlement and resolve their respective concerns in a balanced way through meaningful dialogue.
The recent wave of North Korean missile tests made some experts to say that North Korea has become more daring because of the possibility it has now to avoid any other sanctions that may be imposed on Pyongyang due to the lost divisions inside the Security Council.
Sitting in Thailand, anti-government protesters clashed with police as Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit got underway on Friday. Police confronted protesters trying to march to the summit venue in Bangkok, beating them with batons. Injured activists were seen being carried away, and officials said 10 protesters had been arrested. A different matter now. The Kremlin said on Friday that President Vladimir Putin and US President Joe Biden have no plans to meet for the time being. After Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said earlier that Russia was not ruling out further high-level meetings with the United States on strategic stability as the upcoming meeting between the two powers in Cairo on nuclear production nears. More than 10 million Ukrainians are without electricity due to Russian attacks, affirmed Vladimir Zelensky in his nightly address. The lack of power occurs as it starts to snow in Kiev and other cities, which promises of a very hard winter for Ukraine. Hassan Berkan.
Winter is coming, and the first big snowfall has covered most of Ukraine. In Kiev today, temperature did not exceed 0 degrees. An extreme situation that extends throughout the region and directly affects millions who don't have electricity, as Russian Defense Ministry announced that strikes in Ukraine on Thursday have hit military and energy infrastructure.
On November 17, Russian armed forces inflicted a concentrated strike using long-range, high-precision air, sea and land-based weapons on military command and control facilities, the military-industrial complex of Ukraine and fuel and energy infrastructure associated with them. The goals of the attack have been achieved. All missiles hit their designated targets.
In his evening speech, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky affirmed that more than 10 million Ukrainians are without electricity due to continued Russian strikes on crucial infrastructure.
Consequences of a new missile attack on Ukraine continue all day. Once again, there have been emergency power cuts in addition to the planned cuts. At the present time, more than 10 million Ukrainians are without electricity.
Following a series of Russian military operations since early October, almost half of Ukraine's energy infrastructure is out of order.
Unfortunately, Russia continues to launch missile strikes on Ukraine's critical civilian infrastructure, waging war on the civilian population and depriving them of light, water, heat and communications during the winter. On November 15 alone, Russia fired 100 missiles at Ukrainian cities. Almost half of our energy system is out of order.
For a month now, the campaign of Russian military operations on energy infrastructure has destroyed the main distribution networks. 40% of Ukraine's consumers today don't have any type of electricity supply. In some towns, blackouts can last up to 3 days.
A Swedish prosecutor said on Friday that investigators have found traces of explosives at the site of the damaged Nord Stream gas pipelines, confirming sabotage had taken place. Germany, meanwhile, says Berlin will look into these reports, claiming that traces of explosives were found at the site of the damaged Nord Stream gas pipelines. Second Russia-Africa summit scheduled for 2023 will have its focus on developing ways to expand the country to continent economic cooperation. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Friday after Foreign Ministry hosted the Council of Heads of Russia's federal regions.
Cooperation with the states of the African continent, which was boosted by the first Russia-Africa summit, has withstood the test of the pandemic and continues to develop steadily. Now we're preparing for the second summit, where we plan to work out consolidated solutions for the sake of stepping up trade, economic and investment cooperation.
U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said on Friday he has named Jack Smith, a war crimes prosecutor, to serve as special counsel to oversee Justice Department investigations into Donald Trump involving the former president's handling of sensitive documents and the aftermath of the 2020 election. Garland's announcement came 3 days after Trump, a Republican, announced he would run for president again in 2024. Garland said that Trump's application, as well as Democratic President Biden's intention to run for re-election, made the appointment of a special guidance necessary.
Today, I signed an order appointing Jack Smith to serve as special counsel. The order authorizes him to continue the ongoing investigation into both of the matters that I have just described and to prosecute any federal crimes that may arise from those investigations.
From U.S. to Nigeria, Nigerians are looking forward to a more stable and developed future through the programs of the candidates for the presidential elections to be held on the 25th of the next February, and issues of economy, security, and extremist groups dominate the programs of the campaigns of 18 candidates to succeed the current President Muhammadu Buhari, who ended up 2 terms of government and now has no rights for another term based on the state's constitution laws.
The North is substantial because of the numerical number of votes. The highest number of registered voters is Northwest, followed by the Southwest, then followed by Northeast.
I intend to vote because I need a change, a proper change, a qualitative government to make us feel better. That's what. That's all. To make our children have a good education, have a good health care, good roads, good housing, and that's all.
The UN Climate Conference host negotiations are stalling over funding for poor countries will be extended until Saturday. The 27 nations bloc made a surprise offer at this year's UN climate talks late on Thursday to create fund for loss and damage payments to the most vulnerable nations, an idea long resisted by rich countries in Europe and the United States.
On Monday, we shifted gears. Today, we need to shift gears again. Time is not on our side. Dear friends, I remain committed to bringing this conference to a close tomorrow in an orderly manner with the adoption of a series of consensus decisions that will be comprehensive, ambitious, and balanced.
The second draft of the COP27 decision text, which includes a proposal from the European Union and raise expectation of progress on the summit's final scheduled day, drew another protest alongside criticism from nations and experts. On this report.
Dozens of protesters gathered around the world, including in Sharm el-Sheikh, where the UN climate conference is taking place, calling for a concrete outcome from the 2 weeks of meetings that was described as a big disappointment. Protesters' disappointment was also shared by other countries and experts, expressing dissatisfaction on Friday with a second draft of the COP27 decision text.
There is no emotion in negotiations, and emotions are frowned upon. But talking about our planet, talking about our people should involve emotions. This is the life of us now in the present and our children if there is a future. So I want them to consider that. I want them to acknowledge how serious the crisis is and actually act upon it.
European Union proposal that kept hopes of progress alive on the summit's final scheduled day, which was based on the idea of financially assisting countries devastated by climate-related disasters, was unclear.
So I think there's still a lot of conversation actually where we end up with that text, and I think a lot is riding on it. And I think actually if I think about what are still the big issues that will decide the success of this COP, it's going to be the fossil fuel language, it's going to be the emphasis on adaptation, which we haven't yet seen in this text almost at all, except for kind of the thinking through the implementation bids and technology transfer and capacity. It'll be the loss and damage discussion as well. So I think it's those three that we're looking for.
The draft text also repeated a pledge from last year's summit to phase down the use of coal-fueled power, but did not include the coal backed by India, Colombia, the EU and Britain, to expand this to cover all fossil fuels. Some delegates expressed irritation over an alleged lack of focus in the proceedings, as well as inconsistent supply of refreshments and Wi-Fi connectivity. The 2 weeks of meetings that resulted so far with no beneficial effect to any side, neither nature nor human being, will come to an end on Saturday.
With the adoption of a series of consensus decisions that will be comprehensive, ambitious, and balanced.
UN climate talks have been extended by a day in an effort to break deadlock as nations tussle over funding for developing countries battered by weather disasters and ambition on curbing global warming.
And from Egypt to COP27 conference to Qatar. FIFA has announced that alcohol sales at Qatar World Cup stadiums are to be banned. This decision comes only 2 days before games start in Qatar and is backed by the majority of all Qatari people. More than 1 million visitors are expected to attend the 64 matches being staged in 8 stadiums in the Greater Doha.
We have to follow the rules. It doesn't matter you agree or you don't agree. But because when I'm traveling to France or when I'm traveling to America, I follow the rules exist there. Even if I have a different opinion or I have different things to say about that matter. But I follow the rules of the state.
Because we need to sort of respect the host country views about every country has a particular culture. So I think the spectators here are for the game, for the sports, and that's where they should put their focus on. And I think if the host is saying something, they should respect their views and their culture. So that's my opinion about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And for now, all I can say, good night.